I hereby dub thee the Ouroboros Directive. Alright, first off, I'm weirdly not a fan of ongoing directive. Like, if I wanted a buff, I'll take future initiative. If I want any form of, like, status, I'll just take eclipse. To me, ongoing directive is in this weird place that sort of suits, but doesn't suit the game. I've never really been a big fan of it, generally speaking. I've always felt like in terms of a DPS build, it's very lackluster. In terms of support build, it's okay. It's got some pretty good versatility to it, but there are just other things that just do so much more, where it's, to me, it's just not needed. That being said, Ouroboros. Like, honestly, this is the most fun I've ever had with an ongoing directive build, and it's possibly going to become a mainstay on my main character. Still undecided, just because it did feel... I think I'm just so used to strikers now that if I'm not doing striker DPS, I'm kind of just upset. However, I can take the hit when it comes to Hunter's Fury, simply because of the utility of Hunter's Fury. So I'm unsure. However, like I said, this is the most fun I've actually had with an ongoing directive build. One, it completely negated the ammo issue for Ouroboros. If you don't know what the ammo issue is, then you've not been playing Ouroboros long enough. And the ammo issue, quite simply, is kill 6 enemies and wonder where all your bullets have gone. So, yeah, I'm just not really an ongoing directive fan, but it is growing on me. But it's just, I'm pretty sure Ouroboros is just making it grow on me. Now, in terms of overall performance, this is okay. It's fun, it's engaging. However, to really get the most out of it, you're kind of forced into using glass cannon, which not a lot of people are going to like. I get that, I appreciate that. There is only really, in terms of like weapon DPS, there is only really a 4% difference between Obliterate and glass cannon on this style build. That being said though, we have to take into account the fact that we are also doing bleed, and although the bleed isn't a lot, if you do a quick spray, get a lot of ads, bloody blah, glass cannon is going to affect that bleed, Obliterate isn't. So I'm not too sure how to calculate all those bleed ticks, but the difference is going to be quite a bit more than that 4% of the weapon DPS, and this may or may not influence your choice. It's going to be circumstantial, depending on whether you want to go for that single target or just do a quick spray. It kind of becomes a bit iffy. Sadly though, I've tested a good few, and there's only really one build that actually stands out, which has 2 variations. One is, like I said, glass cannon or obliterate, and the other is going to be whatever backpack talent you want. Vigilance, Unstoppable Force. Because it's an SMG, I'm using Unstoppable Force. I do find it to be absolutely better. However, there is also Wicked if you essentially just want to keep a permanent buff going. Now, the way in which we're going to get status on this is kind of a bit weird. We're basically just going to be rotating between a Stinger Hive, the crossbow, as well as our survivalist grenades, which we also do have a lefty on for obviously proccing perfect sledgehammer. We have a utility tool, which is going to be our chem launcher so that we can heal, mainly just because we're using glass cannon and we hopefully don't want to die too much, because that would be sad times. Anyway, we're going to crack on with the build. Like I said, there's not too much in terms of variation with this. We have Ouroboros, 4-piece ongoing directive. We have 1 critical hit chance mod. The rest of it is, again, Shock Horror Grasp, Grupo, and Sokolov. I've got Glass Cannon and Unstoppable Force. You can go Obliterate for the chest, and you can also go Vigilance or Wicked with the backpack. Wicked will be the lowest damage, but you'll probably have the highest uptime, so it might balance out. It's very hard to test how much uptime you have on talents, simply just because how many tests are you going to run? You might run 10 tests, but the 11th test, you literally just don't have any uptime at all. It becomes a bit of a weird question in a lot of people's eyes, simply just because there is literally no way to test it. There just isn't. You can argue it all you want, but there's no way to accurately test uptime on things like Vigilance, Wicked, etc, etc. Ideally with something like Wicked on this build, arguably 100%, but that is not going to be the case all of the time. So crit chance, crit damage is basically going to be the main two roles you want on the two Sokolov and Grupo pieces, 2 crit damage mods, and all of the roles on Ongoing Directive are going to be weapon damage and crit damage, and like I said, 1 critical hit chance. Ouroboros should be rolled to Detox just because you want a lot of that weapon damage. However, that being said, you can get away with damage to armor simply because that is also going to affect the bleed. That's it. On screen now is the DPS for Ongoing Directive with Glass Cannon, Ongoing Directive with Obliterate and a decent backpack, and then Wicked and Obliterate. You should hopefully see that the difference between Glass Cannon and Obliterate is about 4%, and then Wicked with Obliterate is another near enough 5% below that. So we're near enough dropping 10% going from Glass Cannon, Unstoppable Force, or Vigilance, to going to Obliterate and Wicked. Now, I'm not going to add in every combination, but that's like the top to the lowest, and obviously Obliterate and Unstoppable Force / Vigilance being very solidly in the middle. So it's up to you what you want to go with. It's not too bad in terms of DPS, and I can kind of see it being pretty decent in terms of a buffing-ish build with some form of DPS, although it is nowhere near going to be the top. Just to point out that if you were to have 2 striker players, an Ongoing Directive player like this, and then a healer, just having a 3rd striker player with the healer, skipping Ongoing Directive altogether, is at least 40% more team DPS than what Ongoing Directive is able to give, even if you don't have Ouroboros. Yeah, it's nowhere near as powerful as a lot of people seem to think, especially in terms of giving up a full DPS. Anyway, have fun, good luck, don't die, it's bad for the health.